Sarah had always felt like life was passing her by. At 38 years old, she often found herself wondering if she was destined for something more, but never believed she had what it took to pursue it. From a young age, Sarah had been plagued by self-doubt. In school, her teachers praised other students' talents while her own efforts were overlooked. At home, her siblings excelled in academics and sports, while Sarah felt lost in their shadow. Her life followed a predictable routine: a steady but uninspiring job, evenings spent scrolling through social media, and weekends blending into one another without purpose. Each time she thought of trying something new, a small, critical voice in her head would whisper, "Why bother? You'll just fail." Though she appeared content to those around her, Sarah carried the weight of unfulfilled dreams. There was a nagging sense that she had something unique inside her, a talent or passion waiting to be discovered, but she lacked the courage to explore it. This persistent doubt shaped her life, keeping her in a safe but stagnant place. Little did she know, her world was about to change. A chance encounter would set her on a path of discovery, forcing her to confront her fears, embrace her hidden talents, and redefine her sense of self. It was an ordinary Saturday morning when Sarah's routine was unexpectedly interrupted. She had gone to the local park, hoping for a quiet moment with her thoughts. As she sat on a bench, sipping coffee and scrolling aimlessly on her phone, she noticed a small crowd gathering around a street performer. Intrigued, she wandered closer. The performer was a middle-aged woman with a commanding presence and an easel set up in the center of the park. With swift, confident strokes of her brush, she painted vibrant scenes that seemed to come alive with emotion. The energy in the air was contagious. Sarah felt an inexplicable pull toward the artist's work. The artist noticed Sarah watching from the edge of the crowd and smiled warmly. "Come closer," she invited, her voice kind but firm. Sarah hesitated, but found herself stepping forward, almost against her will. The artist struck up a conversation, asking Sarah about her own creative interests. Embarrassed, Sarah laughed nervously. "Oh, I'm not creative," she said, waving off the idea. "I can't even draw a straight line." The artist's eyes twinkled. "Creativity isn't about straight lines, it's about expressing what's inside you," she said. Then, without warning, she handed Sarah a small sketch pad and a pencil from her supplies. "Here, draw what you feel." At first, Sarah froze. The familiar voice of doubt screamed in her head, "You're going to make a fool of yourself." But the artist's encouragement and the gentle murmurs of the crowd kept her rooted in place. Tentatively, she put pencil to paper. The lines were shaky and hesitant at first, but as she continued, Sarah felt a strange sense of freedom. The critical voice in her head began to fade. When she finally stopped, she looked at her sketch. Not perfect, but undeniably hers. For the first time in years, Sarah felt proud of something she had created. The artist leaned over to look at the sketch and nodded approvingly. "See? There's more to you than you think," she said, patting Sarah on the shoulder. "You just need to give yourself permission to try." That moment stayed with Sarah long after the encounter ended. It wasn't just about the sketch, it was about the spark the artist had ignited within her. A spark that whispered, "Maybe you're more capable than you think." For the first time, Sarah considered the possibility that her self-doubt might be wrong, and that her hidden potential was waiting to be uncovered. After her encounter with the artist, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her had shifted. She went home that evening and dug through a forgotten storage box in her closet. Among old photo albums and childhood trinkets, she found a dusty sketch pad and a set of colored pencils she hadn't touched in over a decade. They had been a birthday gift when she was younger, back when she dreamed of being an artist but lacked the courage to pursue it. Sitting at her dining table, Sarah opened the sketch pad and stared at the blank page. The inner voice of doubt crept in. "You're wasting your time. You're not good at this." But she remembered the street artist's words. "Creativity isn't about straight lines, it's about expressing what's inside you." Taking a deep breath, Sarah began to draw. At first, her strokes were awkward and unsteady, but as the hours passed, she found herself immersed in the process. The lines began to flow more naturally, and the colors brought her sketches to life. It wasn't perfect, but it felt liberating. For the first time, Sarah wasn't focused on the outcome. she was simply enjoying the act of creating. Over the following weeks, Sarah made time to draw every day. Her dining table transformed into a makeshift studio, cluttered with sketch pads, pencils, and paints. She watched online tutorials, learning new techniques and experimenting with different styles. Slowly but surely, she began to see improvement. However, the journey wasn't without challenges. Sarah often compared her work to professional artists online, and the familiar voice of self-doubt would creep back in, whispering, "You'll never be as good as them." There were days when she wanted to quit, convinced she was fooling herself by pursuing this newfound passion. But she pushed through, drawing inspiration from small victories. A friend complimented one of her sketches. A local cafe agreed to display a piece of her artwork. These moments, though small, gave Sarah the confidence to keep going. Eventually, Sarah decided to step outside of her comfort zone. She enrolled in a community art class, nervous about sharing her work with others. On the first day, she walked into the classroom feeling like an imposter among the other students. But as the weeks went by, Sarah realized that everyone was on their own journey of discovery. The class became a safe space for her to learn, make mistakes, and grow. Through this process, Sarah discovered something deeper than her talent for art. She found resilience. Each time she picked up a pencil or brush, she was choosing to silence the doubts that had held her back for so long. Each sketch and painting was a testament to her determination to embrace her potential, no matter how imperfect it seemed. By the end of the class, Sarah had completed a portfolio of work she was genuinely proud of. For the first time in years, she looked at herself not as someone full of limitations, but as someone with untapped potential and the courage to explore it. The journey of discovery wasn't just about learning to create art, it was about learning to believe in herself. As Sarah's confidence in her art grew, so did an inevitable fear, the fear of sharing her work with others. While she found solace in creating for herself, the idea of showing her sketches and paintings to the world felt terrifying. Each time she considered posting a piece online or entering a local art showcase, the familiar voice of self-doubt returned, louder than ever. What if they hate it? What if they laugh at you? One evening, Sarah sat at her dining table, staring at one of her finished paintings, a vibrant depiction of a sunrise over a misty forest. She had poured hours into it, blending colors and perfecting the details, but now, as she held her phone to photograph it, her hand trembled. Thoughts raced through her mind. What if they notice all the flaws? What if it's not good enough? Her fear wasn't just about criticism, it was about vulnerability. Sharing her work meant sharing a piece of herself, her creativity, her passion, her heart. It meant risking rejection, and that was a terrifying prospect. Despite her hesitation, Sarah knew she couldn't keep hiding forever. She remembered the encouragement she had received from her community art class, where fellow students had shared their own insecurities. One of her classmates had said, "Art isn't about perfection, it's about connection." Those words resonated deeply, giving her a flicker of courage. Sarah decided to start small. Instead of entering a public competition, she showed her painting to her closest friend, Emma. Nervously, she unwrapped the canvas and placed it on the table, avoiding eye contact. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma's reaction took Sarah by surprise. She stared at the painting in awe, her eyes lighting up. "Sarah, this is incredible. I didn't know you were so talented." Hearing those words felt like a weight lifting off Sarah's shoulders. For the first time, she saw her work through someone else's eyes, not as flawed, but as something beautiful. Encouraged by Emma's response, Sarah took the next step. Sharing her art online. She created a social media account under a pseudonym, giving herself a layer of anonymity. After much deliberation, she posted a photo of her sunrise painting with the caption, "A small step outside my comfort zone. Hope you like it." Then she set her phone down and walked away, her heart pounding. The next few hours were agonizing. Sarah couldn't stop imagining negative comments flooding in. But when she finally mustered the courage to check her phone, she was met with an outpouring of positivity. Strangers commented on the beauty of her work, praising the colors and detail. Some even asked if she had more pieces to share. While the experience didn't completely silence her doubts, it showed Sarah something important. Her fear didn't have to define her. Each positive comment, each small step forward, was a reminder that sharing her work wasn't about seeking perfection. It was about finding connection and courage in the face of fear. With each post and interaction, Sarah grew braver. Her work wasn't just a reflection of her talent, but a symbol of her resilience, proving that she could face her doubts and move forward anyway. Months after Sarah's tentative decision to share her art, she found herself standing in a brightly lit gallery, surrounded by her own creations. The event was a local art showcase, and one of her instructors had insisted she submit her work. Though hesitant at first, Sarah finally agreed, unsure of what to expect. Now, as she looked around the room, she could hardly believe her eyes. Her paintings hung alongside those of established artists, each piece meticulously displayed under soft golden lights. Guests strolled through the gallery, stopping to admire the vibrant hues and intricate details in Sarah's work. Some whispered to each other, others took out their phones to snap photos. She overheard one woman say, "There's something so raw and emotional about these pieces, I wonder who the artist is." Her heart raced. Standing in the corner, dressed in a modest yet elegant navy dress, Sarah watched nervously as people approached her art. A mixture of pride and fear swirled within her. What if someone asked her about her inspiration? What if they realized she was still a novice, learning as she went? The moment of validation came when a middle-aged man with a kind smile and a notebook in hand approached her. "Are you the artist behind these?" he asked, gesturing to her paintings. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I am." The man introduced himself as a local art critic and writer. "Your work is extraordinary," he said. "The way you use light and color conveys such deep emotion. It's rare to see such authenticity. How long have you been painting?" Sarah stammered, unsure how to respond. "A little over a year," she admitted. The man looked astonished. "You've only just started." "That's incredible. You have a natural gift, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw your name in bigger exhibitions soon." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes as she thanked him. For so long, she had doubted herself, believing her work could never measure up. Yet here she was, receiving genuine praise from someone who understood art deeply. The evening continued with more moments of recognition. A young couple asked if they could buy one of her pieces, a dreamy landscape of a moonlit forest. A group of college students wanted to know if she taught any classes. Each interaction chipped away at the self-doubt she had carried for years, replacing it with a sense of accomplishment. The pinnacle of the evening came during the gallery's announcement of awards. Sarah hadn't even realized there were awards to be given, so when her name was called for the Emerging Artist of the Year recognition, she froze in shock. The applause that followed was thunderous. As she stepped onto the small stage to accept her certificate, Sarah's mind raced through the journey that had brought her here. The years of doubt, the fear of sharing her work, and the small yet courageous steps she had taken to overcome her insecurities. When she looked out at the audience, she didn't just see strangers appreciating her art. She saw validation for the talent she had once dismissed. In that moment, Sarah realized she wasn't just an artist in their eyes. She was finally an artist in her own. Leaving the gallery that night, certificate in hand, Sarah felt a new sense of purpose. The recognition wasn't just about others seeing her worth. It was about finally seeing it herself. Sitting in her small yet cozy studio late at night, Sarah looked around at the space that had become her sanctuary. The walls were adorned with her recent creations, paintings that told stories of resilience, hope, and the rediscovery of herself. The air was filled with the faint scent of turpentine and canvas, and the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminated the tools of her craft. Brushes, palettes, and tubes of paint in every color imaginable. As she worked on a new piece, she reflected on how far she had come. Just a year ago, she had felt lost, weighed down by self-doubt and the fear of failure. She had spent so much time chasing the approval of others that she had forgotten to listen to the quiet voice within her. A voice that had always been urging her to create. Painting had started as a tentative escape, a way to express emotions she couldn't put into words. But over time, it had become something much more profound. Through her art, she had found the confidence to embrace who she truly was. Each brushstroke felt like a reclamation of her identity, a way of saying, This is me, and I am enough. She thought about the people who had supported her along the way, her teacher who encouraged her to showcase her work, the strangers at the gallery who saw beauty in her art, and the friends who had cheered her on when she doubted herself. Their belief in her had sparked a belief in herself. For the first time in her life, Sarah didn't feel the need to prove herself to anyone. She had rediscovered a part of herself she hadn't even realized was lost, and it filled her with a quiet joy. Her art was no longer just about creating something beautiful. It was about living authentically and finding purpose. As she stepped back to admire her latest painting, a vibrant sunset over a calm sea, Sarah smiled. The sunset reminded her of her own journey, the darkness of doubt giving way to the light of self-acceptance. She realized that rediscovering her passion wasn't just about painting, it was about rediscovering herself, and for that she would always be grateful. As Sarah stood at the doorway of her studio, gazing at her finished collection, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace and pride. The studio, once a place of timid exploration, was now a testament to her journey, a visual diary of her growth, resilience, and newfound purpose. Each painting represented a step on her path to self-discovery. The early struggles painted in muted tones, the moments of triumph bursting with color, and the quiet reflections in serene landscapes. These weren't just works of art, they were fragments of her soul, proof of her courage to overcome self-doubt and embrace her true calling. Looking ahead, Sarah felt an undeniable excitement about the future. She no longer saw her passion for art as just a personal escape. She realized it was something that could inspire others. Perhaps her story, of battling doubt, finding confidence, and creating something meaningful, could encourage someone else to take that first step toward their dreams. The journey wasn't about becoming perfect or pleasing everyone, it was about honoring her own truth. Sarah had learned that life's most fulfilling chapters often begin when we dare to rewrite the narrative we've been told to believe. As she closed the studio door and stepped into the evening light, she carried with her a deep sense of gratitude. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she embraced life fully, unapologetically, and with an open heart. And with every brushstroke she painted from now on, Sarah knew she wasn't just creating art. She was creating a life worth living.